You see my one with the notes on it?
No, we just see the slide, and it looks good.
Oh, okay. I thought I was sharing the other screen by accident. So you just see one big slide.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for the opportunity to describe a little bit about how we are hoping to better inform our audiences through data visualization. What I'm presenting today is just a high-level overview of some of the work developed for the Acclimation Fisheries through the STAR project, which stands for Status and Trends Annual Reporting Project. I summarize information for a large number of topics covering a large area at multiple scales, so this is just a high-level overview. So today I will be describing the role of the STAR project and the process that we use when visualizing data, and finally providing some examples of how we are informing our varied audiences. The STAR project, some background, was initiated in 2009 to provide answers to questions that Yakama Nation regularly receives regarding actions and benefits associating with our restoration and management work. These questions include: what is the status and trends of targeted species? Are the resources benefiting? And what has been accomplished through the project? Through STAR, data management and visualization service is provided that enables the Yakama Nation to effectively and flexibly answer these questions. As we begin the process of visualizing our data, we ask ourselves these questions. Who is the audience? What is the message? What data should be displayed or summarized? And finally, can it be understood within 30 seconds? Is it intuitive, or are you going to make your reader work to try and figure out what you're meaning? Because our audience is wide-ranging, we must be adaptive when presenting our data and results. One-size-fits-all does not work. Our audiences include non-technical groups, including Yakama Nation governing bodies, high-level decision and policymakers, funding entities, as well as outreach to the tribal membership, fishers, and the general public. At the same time, we have to be able to serve technical audiences, including resource and program managers, project managers, and be able to answer requests from biologists and help support reporting requirements as we're able. Given our different audiences, the topics of interest and associated data can vary quite significantly among these groups. Because of these differences, we have adopted varied methods to best inform each group. Some areas of interest include habitat restoration, species status and trends, hatchery and reintroduction work, tribal harvest, information about the control of predators, hydrosystem improvements, and efforts to address contaminants. This includes most everything affecting the natural resources of most concern of the Yakama Nation. Regardless of the audience and method of visualization, the intuitive visuals are very important. If it is too hard for the audience to figure out what you are trying to say, you have failed in getting your message across, whatever it is, and you will lose them, especially with attention spans for information sources becoming shorter these days. It's important to be able to reach people in a way that they are comfortable. So that was a general overview of some of the processes. And so now I will show some examples of ways that we are visualizing data. At the very high level, for our non-technical audiences, we have developed the use of infographics as a good approach for conveying our messages. We represent simple designs that provide lasting impressions and do not require significant effort to interpret, and these materials are also useful in handouts and presentations to general audiences. The use of Esri story maps is also a good way to convey information to non-technical audiences. They have interactive features, videos, and an overall appearance that allows us to maintain engage the user's attention and generate additional interest in the work. It provides the instant gratification that helps engage people. This format also allows for some drill down capability for those who want to dig a little bit deeper. For some of the higher level technical audiences that are still wedded to a more traditional report format, we put together a comprehensive annual report as well, which is available in printed and PDF format that you can access online. And these audiences want more detail and context than can be provided with a simplistic high-level visual, such as infographics. But we made an effort to limit the use of text that would be in paragraph format to just general introductions, and we rely more on histograms with supporting bulleted text and standalone maps, tables, and stuff like that. Because this type of audience doesn't tend to read extensive text. You lose them. And then recognizing the need to make the comprehensive annual reports more approachable for those audiences that are both technical and non-technical hybrids, and those people who prefer electronic formats that have interactive features. We are currently developing an interactive site that will allow audiences to learn more about the information presented in the reports and drill down. They will be able to click on various visualized data features such as graphs and maps and view the data that was used to create the visuals. And this is a Drupal site with Esri components. Finally, getting down to the supporting information, the data used to create the visuals, we also are providing data visualization services that are technically oriented through an information management service, and it allows for data upload and download, internal and external sharing, QA/QC reviews and documentation of the data sets, online queries, and the production of data visualization. It is supported by MySQL database, SQL Server reports, Drupal data query module, and is accessed through a Drupal dashboard website. Finally, in summary, we found that the key has really been understanding that the intended audience that we are attempting to inform dictates what types of visuals we must provide. The most important is to not limit yourself to one type of visualization for all audiences, because that will become problematic and ineffective. Some things that we are still working on is developing more connectivity and interactivity now, and feeding data sets into sharing and reporting sites as we are able. And we have some live feed data sets and interactive reports. And then we're working on getting some live feeds into the Yakima Fish general public websites as well for the regular public. Other lessons include iterative development. People don't always know what they want and what will work best beforehand. So you have to adapt, and you might need to make changes so that folks can find what is most needed, such as with your website navigation. You have to be adaptive and flexible. So finally, here are some links. Some of the components of the STAR dashboard are still in development, but if you want to check it out, contact me, Sam, at yakimafish-nsn.gov, and I can get you a password to see some of the different components. Some of it's public, some of it's not. And then also PDFs of reports are also available at the Yakima Fish Public website. And just very briefly, I'm not going to go through any of this, but this is what the Yakima Fisheries Public website looks like. And you scroll down, there's PDFs of the different reports there. And then this is the STAR dashboard with that provides access to the reports and some story maps. And then also, if you're like a staff member, you can log in and access data sets and such. But I guess that's about it.
Thank you, Michelle. This is great. A lot of good information. It looks like you guys are pretty far along as far as developing all kinds of ways to visualize data. And I just sent everybody a chat message that has the links that were on I think the second to the last slide, so that you can get directly to those sites that Michelle was showing us. So any questions?
Yes, this is Leska. I have a couple of questions. Really, really like your presentation, and I was looking at your website, and it just looks fantastic. I'm wondering first if your presentation that you just showed will be on that website, because I would like to steal a couple of your slides, if possible. And then, and my second question is, did you develop your materials in-house, or did you have any contract support for that? They're really beautiful.
Yes. So I think, Sharon, you have these presentations on your site, don't you?
Yes, we posted them on the pnamp.org site. You can get to it a couple of different ways. One through our calendar, today's event at today's date, and the other through the project page, project data management, data visualization. And I sent that link to everybody in the chat. It's also in all of the emails. And the slides are there as a PDF, and also the email links to the sites.
Okay, so you can contact me individually if you have other specific requests. And what was the other question? Oh, yeah. So Yakima Nation doesn't really have a strong IT department of any sort. And so I'm very fortunate to have contract support through QW Consulting in Portland. And they help provide some of the technical assistance with the report development and the online technical work as well, which we don't have staff available or with those particular skills to do this. So especially now with the heavy lifting with putting all this this project and all these features together, it's very helpful. Eventually, we hope to be able to transfer much of the maintenance and updates and that kind of thing to Yakima Nation staff, but definitely rely on contracted IT assistance. So we don't have it in-house.
Sounds good.
This is Tom. I'd like to make a comment.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted
Go ahead,
to.
Tom.
I just wanted, maybe Michelle, you could expand on it, but just the value and the importance of a good photo library and making sure that you have photos in along with your infographics and, you know, information, and just how important you've discovered that to be in the STAR project.
Oh yeah, certainly, especially with the general public, the tribal leadership. They really like to see, especially pictures of their staff working with fish, implementing projects, before and after photos of restoration work, all of that. Really, when I hand out the reports, that's what people immediately go to first. If you fill a material with lots of really technical stuff and lots of text, you really lose people, you know, if it's all graphs. Of course, there is the audience for which that's appropriate, other biologists and researchers and such who make requests for our data, and we're able to provide that through the sort of the supporting data management system. But that you really lose people if you subject them to that, if they are not a technical person. So yeah, great photos. It can be hard to get, but it's important.
Right. Any other questions? All right. I think we'll move to Chantel here of South Sound Spatial and contracting with Washington GSRO and working with many other agencies. So I've stopped sharing my screen. Chantel, are you able to take the screen?
Yes. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. Looks good.
Well, thank you for having us. So I am one of a multi-member team, and we have a couple of our team members on the call today. Lesko Four from the Puget Sound Partnership and Keith DeBlonica from the Governor's Salmon Recovery Office, RCO. But we also have other partners as well. We have Eileen Trujillo from Puget Sound Partnership, Jessica Archer and Carol Smith from Department of Ecology. And those not listed on the screen here, we are also partnering with the Hood Canal Coordinating Council, Department of Fish and Wildlife, the Skokomish Tribe, Jamestown Skaalum Tribe, and the Northwest Indian Fisheries Commission. And the project we've been working on for about 3 years now is developing a set of tools for looking at what's working to restore Puget Sound. And we're going to be looking at a project that specifically looks at Hood Canal. But our mantra here is looking at investments, actions, and outcomes using various tools. And the examples I'm going to be showing you today are the effectiveness and evaluation tool, which is built on R-Shiny. And the other one we're going to look at today is a fact sheet that utilizes Tableau. So what's the purpose? So we're using EAT, the effectiveness and evaluation tool, to communicate what's working to restore water quality, salmon, and shellfish beds in Puget Sound. It's a set of tools that integrate information about recovery actions and the outcomes in order to evaluate which actions are effective. So we're predominantly looking at water quality, fish numbers, and where shellfish beds are improving, and what actions were done in those sub-watersheds. So we're using a scaled approach. We're using HUCs in particular to create a drill down from a small scale to a larger scale within watersheds. And our audiences are several. So we're trying to reach project sponsors, enable them to share local project outcomes, and we're also hoping that project managers can use the tool to apply local results at a regional scale. And we're also trying to provide information to funders to demonstrate accountability. So when we got together 3 years ago, coming from multi-agencies, we were looking at a tool on our whiteboard as we were sketching and talking, a tool that could bring together data from many different agencies. So we're working with data that's coming from ecology, that's coming from Department of Fish and Wildlife, that's coming from the Governor's Salmon Recovery Office. But what we didn't want to do is we didn't want to build a database. So this is not a new database. This is a tool that can pull data via live feed across the internet and integrate the data into a single platform. So it can integrate, it can pre-process, it can perform statistics and analysis, and it can also provide roll-up capabilities so that you can drill down into a sub-watershed and roll up to the watershed scale, all within the same platform. And we also wanted to be able to see the investments, the actions, and outcomes all in the same pane. And then the results of that, we're hoping that we could communicate to local stakeholders and generate a shared understanding of the investments, the actions, and the outcomes. And we're also hoping that the results of the platform could inform management decisions and where new funding opportunities could be invested on the landscape based on the information from the tool. With lofty goals. So my background's in GIS, so I provided GIS support. So we felt pretty comfortable with mapping and story maps, being able to show the user where, and this is Hood Canal, summer chum population. You can see that there's large improvements in most of these sub-watersheds within the Hood Canal ESU for summer chum. And we chose this area because of this positive trend for summer chum. We wanted to tell a positive story using our tool. So we felt comfortable being able to roll up, roll down using the HUC framework. But we lacked some technical skills within our team. Let's see. So we wanted a tool that, as a group, we wanted a tool that was open source, that connects the investments in restoration to efforts and variable outcomes. And we wanted to build an interactive visualization platform that represents the granular and then the broader scale. And we also wanted it to do some pre-processing of the data, such that it reduces the load on staff for combing through the data, and basically what we call harmonizing the data. And we also wanted it to be scalable so that we could add in additional data sets over time. So these were our data inputs as we understood them. So coming from different agencies, this is, and I won't go through the whole thing, but I'll just point out that as a team, we felt pretty comfortable integrating in the EAGLE system, which is coming from ecology, Habitat Work Schedule, and PRISM, which is coming from RCO, GSRO, and some fish data that was coming from the Department of Fish and Wildlife. We had knowledge based on our team membership that these data were of quality that we could use. And I have to speak to, this is one of the things that was a lesson learned, was that we spent quite a bit of time combing through data sets to find ones that were long-term, that represented the HUCs and the spatial distribution that made sense for our project. And so I think that was one of the things that was the most time-consuming, was selecting and finding the correct data to use. And also the other thing that is still ongoing, which is reaching out to other agencies and forming partnerships. But we felt that it was important to build EAT as a prototype so that we could reach out to funders with our idea, and that we could also recruit new agencies and partnerships along the way. So given that we didn't have the technical capabilities in-house, we reached out to the University of Washington Information School to help us build our vision. And so here I have to give credit to 3 wonderful students who donated a fall semester through the Information School as a project for their capstone. Emma Clark, Tim Blankenship, and Katrina Gerties, who built EAT for us. And they really brought a lot of great energy to the group, very creative. They helped us really think through some of the minutia of our project and provide us with a final product that then we could share with others. So I am not a developer, but I'll do my best to explain the components of EAT. So EAT is built on R, which Leska really liked because, as she says, it brings you closer to the data. And so it is based off of R, which you all know is a statistical package. R Shiny is a package that you can create interactive applications. It uses R Markdown. You can integrate in CSS, which is styling for websites, HTML widgets, and use JavaScript actions. The students also used Leaflet, which is an open sourced mapping library. And then, let's see what else. Oh, and R Shiny is open source, as I've said, and there's a vibrant support community and great documentation. So those are the reasons why we went this direction using R. So here's an example of the EAT dashboard. So we have, and I'm going to jump to it, but in case I'm unsuccessful, we have the watershed broken out into HUC 12s and HUC 10s, and you can roll up and roll down and switch between variables, and the charts change as you drill down into each sub-watershed. We have the source data as a download, and then we added some other elements here to make it more user-friendly for those colorblind users. And then we also created the capability to switch between data sets. And then before I go to the web, I'm going to show you the next one, which is the Tableau. We call it a fact sheet, where you can select your watershed, and then the view changes depending upon your selection, which includes the actions, the outcomes, and the investments, which is down below. You can't see it on my screen. So I'm going to jump out of here and go to the web, and hopefully we will be successful in demonstrating EAT. Great. So here the user can switch between variable. So I'm going to stick with Summer Chum and show you the roll up, roll down capabilities. So I'm going to roll down to a HUC 12, and then I'm going to click on Skokomish, and you'll see over here that the charts change as I'm clicking on each sub-watershed, and it's also showing me the Cohen C, which is how each sub-watershed are symbolized, with which is a unitless change statistic. And if there's any questions about that, I'm going to ask Leska to jump in. And then we can roll back up to a HUC 10, and that then shows the total within each HUC 10. And so their long-term vision is that we can use the same method for larger watersheds throughout Puget Sound. We can also switch between variable and perform the same sort of exploratory look at what the turbidity, average turbidity levels were, the total investment within that watershed, and then look at the change statistic to see what sort of improvement we're seeing within those HUCs. And then finally, I'm going to jump to the what we call a fact sheet. So this was intended to be a create your own fact sheet for those managers that wanted to communicate improvements in their watershed. So again, this is by HUC 12, and I'm just going to go to Jimmy Come Lately because that's a favorite one of ours. It'll let me. And the reason we're kind of strayed from Tableau, as you'll notice here, is the load time's kind of slow. So we ended up, that's why we ended up going the R route, but we had already made this, and this is something that we use and actually embedded in some of our story maps, because you can embed not only the EAT website, but you can also embed Tableau as well. And so sometimes we'll combine technology, so we'll have an Esri story map and then embed our Tableau work products that are EAT work products so that we can give more depth to the story maps. So Tableau again, and you can see that you can mouse over and see how much each of these project investments were within Jimmy Come Lately, and then you can also zoom down within each of these panels too. You can kind of see why we strayed from Tableau. And then down below, you can see the investments within this watershed. And so there's a relational design behind this that enables us to connect each of these components, investments, actions, and outcomes to generate this display. So that's all I have. So I'm happy to take questions if anybody has questions on EAT or this this Tableau product here.
I have a question.
Sure.
What the overarching organizational structure here? You started out with Hood, Canal, Chum. Is that structure based on a MPG or an ESU or
ESU.
what is? Okay, so that's the organizational structure within which you use HUCs?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Chantel?
Yeah, this is Denise. I have a question actually for both of you. Now that you have these products up on websites, how much traffic are you getting?
Well, this is a beta currently, and I should mention that we have applied for EPA funds, and we should hear this month. Let's see, we applied for the Enterprise Grant for Water Quality Exchange Network funding. We submitted in the fall and should hear this spring if we have been awarded. So this right now is public technically, but we share it privately. So it's not live yet, so we haven't been tracking traffic to this beta version.
Yeah, this is Keith DeBlonica. Can I add to that, please?
Please.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Denise, and thank you both for your presentations, Denise and Chantel. And as Chantel alluded, we have submitted to the Exchange Network for the EPA this particular project in cooperation with the Skokomish tribe that, as Chantel mentioned, the Exchange Network solicitation was delayed, and we submitted it pretty soon after the new year due to some EPA administrative issues. And we've been successful in a number of Exchange Network products in the past, as have PNAMP and other folks on this call. And we do hope to hear, at least tentatively, late April or early May about the possibility of an award that could be here by October 1. However, we're not just going to count on this particular product through that particular funding source. We are also developing some strategies for a legislative ask to our state funders for next year as a backup for this, because the Hood Canal study and portion of Puget Sound is a template that we hope can go state and region wide at a later date. And that's something that the EPA is always encouraging on transferability to other elements or other users throughout the nation. So we may be having an opportunity with Region 10, and folks on this call are part of Region 10.
This is Leska, and I'd also like to jump in and add something here. And that is, if there's one thing that we learned doing this, the scale of the project is a little daunting. And as Chantel said at the outset, we weren't trying to make the Uber data set to make everything the new home for all the data in the world. And the one thing that we learned is that the value of prototyping. And so what we started out trying to do is demonstrate end-to-end functionality across all these different steps of getting data to a visualization platform. And so it's not operational. This is like the, what do you call it in the old West towns, you know, the front of the building. This is just what it sort of would look like. You know, this isn't, the data aren't vetted, the outcomes aren't vetted yet. It's just it's truly just a visualization of a visualization. And we've learned along the way that there are more points along the way where people need to confirm that yes, that's the right data, yes, you're telling the right story, and yes, that interpretation is correct. And so all those steps, all those human steps have to be built in. And that's why we've tried to make it modular and call it a tool set rather than just a tool. And what we found as we've been going along, what's been really gratifying is sometimes the stories that are in the data are often incomplete, and there's a lot more that happened, you know, both good and learning for the next time, that's not captured by data. And so that was the reason for putting in that PDF, you know, make your own fact sheet so that people could capture those other things. Like in the Skokomish, they restored 400 acres of upland and estuarine habitat, and then the eelgrass came back. But nobody measured the eelgrass before because they didn't expect it to come back as a result. So those sorts of stories are what we want to give people an opportunity to share, and not just the data outcomes.
Thank you, Leska. I really appreciate you providing that additional input and kind of the backstory of how we've put this together and what we're hoping it can serve. At this stage of the call, I think our next part of this agenda for the discussion was to see from the participants and ourselves the ultimate purpose and goal and objectives. And we've shown a bit how we hope to use our visualization tool and how we hope to present what's happening in our areas that have needs for, or we're assessing the recovery of salmon and shellfish and habitat. And there's unique elements to our presentation that Chantel provided, or Chantel's presentation, and what Denise provided for the Yakima. There's certainly other venues out there and other tools, and these are opportunities, I think, for folks to talk through what you might be particularly interested in presenting and how best you may do it with some of these items that are here, or something similar, or something else fairly unique. And how do we use the common coding to present to multiple audiences at multiple scales? I think that's always an issue on who is your audience. You know, are we talking to funders? Are we meeting legislators or congressional staff folks in elevators, and you need a 1-minute discussion, which those fact sheets worked very well. Something that Chantel and Jen Bayer and the PNAM crowd worked on are IMW fact sheets for all the IMWs on the West Coast. And those visualization tools supported that. Leska had worked on something else in Puget Sound of all the 16 river deltas of Puget Sound with these similar fact sheets, similar visualization, and some are interactive and some not. So at this point, I'd like to just put it out to the crowd on what other needs, what other goals would folks on this call have that maybe are being expressed here or are not. And there's certainly some things like Russell Scranton's One Fish, Two Fish that we didn't get into detail, but that could be some of the next steps where we have a, you know, perhaps an hour-long series of presentations with an hour-long follow-up immediately after that. We're trying to cram a lot into a short amount of time here, but this was to kind of, you know, check the temperature of the crowd and see what we can do with what we have and where we can go. So with that, I'll just take it back to folks on the call. And
I've got a question for you, Keith.
Sure, Tom.
This is Tom Iverson. do you foresee this visualization tool being connected to any of your Exchange nodes, JMX or AFX or any of those?
We would like to do that, you know, until we get some funding and we see some opportunities. We're working with Bruce Jones from the Northwest Indian Fisheries Commission, and we've worked with them in the past on the juvenile migrant exchange, and we're also in the midst of an adult migrant exchange right now, and we're trying to add a phase of a spawning ground database. So I think ultimately these connections or the tethers are possible. It's just pulling all of that together, because I think it offers some wonderful value and assets to have these tied in. And I think, you know, there's opportunities with CRIDFIC and with Columbia Basin issues. We just happen to have to focus on this particular part of the state at this time. But that's our office goal, or agency goal, is to help provide connections statewide and region-wide at some point later. Uh-oh, anybody there?
Yes. I think from our first meeting, we had come up with a couple of ideas for this working group, and one was to learn from each other and see different people's, but also, you know, how will we present and visualize data, as Keith is saying, how will we do it in a common way throughout the region? Do we want this group to come up with a way to do that? That could possibly be a workshop. So goals of the group, first, you know, what do we want from the group? And second, what do we want the product to be, or the objectives to be for the group? You know, it's good to discuss it among ourselves and hear each other now, but you can also email me privately and I can disseminate information among everybody. And we can have a longer discussion next meeting about it. But yeah, I think that we need to nail down, do we want a product, or do we just want to keep learning from each other and having discussions about what we think we need. Maybe we're not ready to produce a product. So yeah, but yeah, anybody jump in, and you may have muted yourself. I hope, Meg, you can unmute everybody.
So this is Denise. As I've been listening to everybody, I've just been thinking about who actually has been on these calls. Do we have the full gamut of folks? Do we have scientists that are deep into their data and really need to visualize so that they can analyze their data better and model and then present their information at conferences in a really clean, precise way? Or is our group more of policymakers and IT folks who are trying to produce the report for policy folks? Does anybody have a feel for that?
I think you hit the nail on the head, Denise. That's really, here at StreamNet, what seems to happen is we design the visualization for the policy folks and then get criticized by the technical people for not adjusting every little detail. And so I think that's common, that the audience isn't clearly defined when we go into the start of the process.
Right. So yeah. So who is this group that wants to learn more about data visualization? For me, as a scientist and also as an IT, I want to see the whole thing personally, but I don't know if we can do that. I want to see everything from new tools to visualize my data for analysis to actually getting that out on the web for policy folks. So that's me, but I don't know who we have here in our group. And I think we have maybe about half the folks we had in our first call, my feeling right now. So as people come and go, who should we be focusing on?
So this is Audrey at OWeb. I can provide my perspective if that's cool with you guys.
Yeah, go ahead, Audrey.
That's cool.
Yeah, thanks. So this is Audrey Hatch with the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board, and I would just say Ken Fetcho and I have been talking about data visualization quite a bit. We're aware of various tools and platforms out there. I really like what I saw today, because what I'm thinking about a lot is actually what I think Denise just articulated of the different audiences. What I saw today, gives me some ideas and gives me some time to sit down and reflect a little bit more on ideas about how to really connect the underlying data with the visualization tools. So I guess I would say from our perspective, we're in learning mode. I like this avenue to kind of view and go in a little bit of detail and depth on some of these different tools that are out there. It's really hard to find the time or to know, what's out there without a group like this. I would say that we're, in my opinion, from OWA's perspective, we're not looking for this group to really produce a product yet. I wouldn't rule that out in the future. But at this time, just with the variety of different tools out there and approaches and needs that we have, I think we're in learning mode at this time and really just want to stay engaged and continue the process. I don't want to rule anything out, but I want to just be realistic about where I think we are.
Thank you, Audrey. That makes sense, and that's good to hear. Anybody else, comments or thoughts?
So this is Tom Iverson. First off, Denise, astute as always. I think it was a great observation about who this group is. What sort of my approach to this group, what I see as the common factor is a bunch of people that have been assigned to communicate sort of about programs, and it's sort of rarely the scientists that have to deal with the communication to policy, to public, to the funding source or whatever. And so I sort of sense from sort of my interest in this group is sharing that common effort to communicate to the public and lessons learned and how can we do it better and can we be consistent. We're doing a lot of lobbying with Congress, state and federal, and just trying to make sure that all these different groups that are doing that are sending very similar messages and using similar graphics and similar ways of expressing so that it doesn't look like a disconnected effort. And so that's my interest in this visualization group, is to help make sure we're thinking about this and sort of aligning our pictures and images and communication tools. But I do agree that visualization for scientists for analysis is very important and becoming a much more sort of much more important tool for them to use. And hopefully if we can get some of our communication tools improved, we can buy some more time for the scientists to do their work.
Right, Tom. We've heard, I think, similar things with the IMW group, trying to coordinate the message to policyholders and at the same time having the information work for scientists, having it available among agencies. And so any other thoughts?
This is Leska, and I would say that that pathway from becoming that career path from being a scientist to being a communicator is a very interesting one. And I think what I've learned, or my team has learned, is that defining that audience has been one of the key things of getting our information in the hands of the right people. And fortunately, I work in a small organization where I can walk across the hall and talk to our political liaison, the person that talks to the funders. And early on, we were pretty clear that our audience was going to be funders and project sponsors. And so what that meant was we had a sophisticated audience, but a non-technical one. And thinking about it from that perspective has really helped us. And there's so many more tools out there now that where people get their information. Blogs, I'm seeing so many more videos as well. And the hardest thing for me to let go of was the graph. And so many communication experts just really had to pry my hands off the graph. And so, you know, what are the key messages and what are the images that support those key messages? Because when I talked to Jeff Parsons, our political liaison, I think I'm getting his title wrong, but it's something like that. You know, he doesn't even have time to hand him a fact sheet, elected official. It's more like in conversation, oh, there's this project that made 60,000 more juvenile fish, salmon. You know, it's that kind of a quick thing. But he may be challenged by a staffer, and so he has to have a way that he can have that fact and track it all the way back to the document. And that's what we try to do, is put together that trail from a key message back to the originating document. So one thing that we use, the fact cabinet, that just has those key ideas and where they can find the details of the information and who to contact.
And do you do that with a fact sheet that's one page, or a presentation, or what exactly do you hand him?
We've been handing him one-page fact sheets, and he seems to like that. And what we found is now we need a way to manage all those fact sheets, and I think that's what Chantel's last product was. Is, you know, there's a library. Oh, I'm in this congressional district this week. I'm talking to this senator. What projects are in that district? And then he can go look and search. We have another tool based on a WordPress site where it's innovation stories, and you can just see one little summary of a project, and you can download it, and then he can see, oh, I'm going to search in this congressional district. Here's these three projects. Okay, if I need more info, I can go look online, but here's the key projects in their district. Oh, here's some results from it. Mm-hmm. And is this some wonderful system that's all totally put together? No, we're still prototyping.
Right. Well, the one-page fact sheet idea links back to the source data, links back to supporting information and visualizations. That's, I think, where people thought they would like to go with the IMWs. So similar kind of thought. Anyone else? Thoughts, ideas about where this group could go? We're about to wrap it up here, and so maybe a couple more people. No? All right, then. I'm going to say we'll wrap it up. We'll get you the notes. We have recorded this, and so if you can talk to your colleagues, send them information in our data visualization resource sheet, that could maybe pique some interest, and maybe we can have a larger group next time. And I really, really appreciate the presenters, Chantel and Michelle. Nice work, great presentations. And I think we will continue. I'm hearing that we need to continue to learn from each other and see where we're going, what we're doing and developing. So we'll have more presentations, and always feel free to email me, Sharon, and I'll develop the next agenda for May and be shortly sending out a Doodle information poll. So yeah, and if anybody has any more questions for the presenters, or me, if you want any more information or sources, just let me know and we'll get that out there. And thank you everybody for your time.